Think about the last time you felt really sad. Not frustrated, not tired, not overwhelmed. Actually sad. Now ask yourself, what did you do with it? Did you cry? Did you let someone see it? Or did you find a way to push it down, hold it together, and just keep moving like nothing happened? If you chose the last one, this video is about why. Because here's the thing most people don't realize. The way you handle your emotions as an adult wasn't something you chose. It was something you were taught. Quietly. Without anyone sitting you down and explaining the lesson. It happened in small moments. A look from a parent. A phrase repeated so many times it became a rule. The absence of comfort when you needed it most. And for a lot of people exactly like you, the lesson was this. Your sadness is a problem. Your sadness makes people uncomfortable. Your sadness needs to be managed, controlled, or hidden, so you learn to hide it. And here you are. There's a moment most people who grew up this way remember, even if they haven't thought about it in years. You were young. Something upset you. It could have been small, or it could have been enormous. You started to cry. Or maybe you didn't even get to cry before someone stepped in, and what you heard wasn't "I'm here" or "tell me what's wrong." What you heard was something more like, "Stop crying, you're being too sensitive, there's nothing to cry about, you're fine." Other kids have it worse. Go to your room until you can calm down. Some of you didn't even hear words. It was just a look, a silence, a body that tensed up instead of reaching toward you, an adult who clearly did not know what to do with your pain, and so they communicated, without ever saying it directly, that your pain was too much, and children are incredibly good at receiving that message. You were too, so your brain did something brilliant and heartbreaking at the same time. It adapted. Here's what's actually happening inside a child's brain when sadness is consistently shut down, dismissed, or punished. The brain has one central job. Not happiness, not success, survival. Every single thing your brain does is in service of that goal. And for a child, survival is almost entirely social. You cannot feed yourself. You cannot keep yourself warm. You cannot protect yourself. Your survival depends completely on the adults around you, which means your brain, very early on, becomes extraordinarily sensitive to what those adults respond well to, and what they don't. When sadness consistently produces a negative response from the adults you depend on, tension, withdrawal, anger, dismissal, your brain logs that as a threat. Not a social threat, a survival threat. And it responds accordingly. The emotional part of your brain, the part that generates sadness, starts getting suppressed by the rational part that is trying to keep you safe. Think of it like an alarm system where the alarm keeps getting switched off before it can alert anyone. The alarm still exists, the thing triggering it still exists, but the signal never gets out. Over time, this doesn't just happen in moments of sadness. It becomes your default setting. By the time you reach adulthood, you are not choosing to suppress your emotions. You're not even consciously aware you're doing it most of the time. It's automatic. It's been automatic since you were 6 or 8 or 10 years old. Now here's where it gets complicated, because this wasn't a conscious decision. Nobody sat down and thought, I am going to teach this child to be emotionally unavailable. Most of the adults who did this were doing it because their parents did it to them, or because they genuinely didn't have the emotional capacity to hold your pain on top of their own, or because they were raised in a culture or a generation that treated emotional expression as weakness. Some of them thought they were making you stronger. Some of them thought they were teaching you resilience. Some of them weren't thinking about you at all. They were just trying to manage their own discomfort. None of that makes it hurt less. But it might make it make more sense. Because the anger or grief you might be feeling right now as you watch this, that makes complete sense too. You deserve to be held. You deserve to have someone sit next to you and let you feel what you were feeling without making it into their problem. That was your right as a child, and it was taken from you, not through cruelty in most cases, but through the quiet poverty of emotional unavailability. So what did it actually do to you? Let's talk about that. Because the effects are real, they're specific, and they go a lot deeper than most people realize. The first thing it did, and this is the one nobody talks about, is it disconnected you from your own emotional signals. Emotions aren't just feelings, they're information. Sadness tells you something important was lost, or something isn't right, or you need connection, or you need rest, or something in your life needs to change. Sadness has a job. It's a messenger. But when you spent years learning to shut that messenger down before it could speak, eventually you stop being able to hear it at all. You start to lose the ability to identify what you're actually feeling. Psychologists call this alexithymia, which is a long clinical word that basically means you have difficulty naming your own emotional states. You might know something is wrong, but not be able to tell if you're sad or scared or angry or just tired. You might feel numb when something objectively terrible happens and then have a complete breakdown over something small, because the small thing cracked open something the big thing couldn't. You might be really good at knowing how other people feel while having almost no access to your own feelings. That one's particularly common among people who grew up having to monitor adult moods just to stay emotionally safe. Your emotional attention went entirely outward because inward wasn't safe. The second thing it did, and you might recognize this one immediately, is it made you incredibly uncomfortable with other people's sadness. This is one of the most painful and least expected legacies of emotional suppression. Because you didn't just learn to hide your own sadness, you absorbed the message that sadness itself is something to be managed and eliminated. So when someone close to you starts crying or expresses pain or tells you they're struggling, something in you goes a little rigid. You want to fix it immediately. You offer solutions. You say, "It'll be okay," before they've even finished explaining what happened. You change the subject. You make a joke. You become strangely efficient when what the person actually needs is for you to just sit with them in it, and then you feel guilty about that, because part of you knows that wasn't the right response. But you genuinely don't know how to do anything else, because nobody ever showed you what it looked like to just sit with sadness without trying to solve it. Here's the irony that probably stings a little. The very thing nobody did for you, you now don't know how to do for anyone else. And the people closest to you sometimes feel like you don't care, not because you don't, but because the language of emotional presence was never taught to you. The third thing, and this one runs deep, is it changed your relationship with yourself. When you're a child and your sadness is consistently rejected, you don't think "my parent is uncomfortable with emotions." You don't have that kind of perspective yet. What you think is much simpler and much more devastating. You think there is something wrong with me. My sadness is too much. I am too much. The real me, the one who feels things and cries and needs comfort, that person is not acceptable, so you build another version of yourself, the one who is fine, the one who holds it together, the one who doesn't need much, the one who can handle things, and that version gets really, really good at its job. People start saying things like, "You're so strong, and you always seem so calm, and I don't know how you do it." And there's a part of you that feels proud of that because you worked hard for it. But there's another part deeper down that is exhausted, that knows that strength isn't actually strength, it's armor. And armor is heavy. You've been carrying it for 20, 30, maybe 40 years. And the tragic part is this: the more people praise you for how together you seem, the more trapped you feel inside it. Because now it's not just something you do, it's who people think you are. It's who you've made them believe you are. And letting that version crack, letting anyone see what's underneath, feels not just vulnerable, but dangerous. Like the whole carefully constructed version of you will fall apart, there's also something that happens with relationships specifically. When you grow up not being allowed to be sad, intimacy becomes confusing. Because real intimacy, the kind where you actually feel close to someone, requires emotional exposure. It requires showing someone your pain, your fear, your need. All the things you learned very early were not safe to show, so you might get really close to people on a surface level. You're funny, engaging, easy to be around. People love spending time with you. But there's a ceiling, a point past which you don't go, where conversations that start getting too real get deflected, where someone starts to love you deeply and instead of moving toward them, you start very subtly, almost unconsciously, moving away, or you do the opposite. You go looking for connection desperately. But when someone gets close enough to actually see you, the real you, not the fine version of you, something shuts down. You pull back, or you push them away, or you suddenly find everything slightly wrong with them, because closeness, real closeness, feels like standing in the exact same position you were in as a child when you needed someone and it wasn't safe. And your nervous system, which is much older than your rational mind, doesn't know the difference between then and now. Now, let's talk about something that sounds strange but is very real. A lot of people who were never allowed to be sad growing up become extraordinarily compassionate adults, the kind of person everyone goes to with their problems. The one who will sit with a friend through a crisis at 2 in the morning, who always knows what to say, who seems to have an almost supernatural ability to understand what someone else is going through. And that is real. That is a genuine gift that came at real cost from having to be so attuned to the emotions of others from such a young age. But here's what also happens. That same person, the one who gives so much, who holds space so beautifully for everyone around them, goes home at the end of the day and cannot cry, cannot ask for help, cannot tell even their closest person that they are struggling, will carry pain alone for months, sometimes years, before it either comes out sideways or doesn't come out at all. You have learned to be a container for everyone else's sadness because you had no container for your own. And that's not sustainable. Not forever. Not without a cost. So what do you actually do with this? I'm not going to give you a 5-step plan. That's not how this works. But there are some things worth understanding, because sometimes understanding alone starts something. The first thing is to stop treating your emotions as problems to be solved and start treating them as information to be heard. When you feel something, and by that I mean something uncomfortable, something sad or scared or empty, instead of immediately trying to fix it or manage it or push it away, try staying with it for 60 seconds. That's it, 60 seconds. Don't explain it, don't justify it, don't do anything with it. Just let it be there, in your body. And notice what it feels like. Your nervous system has been in emergency management mode for most of your life. It needs to learn slowly, and with repetition, that feeling something sad is not a threat. It will not destroy you. The people around you will not leave. You will not fall apart beyond repair. But it cannot learn that if you keep shutting the alarm off before it can show you that, this will feel wrong at first. It will feel weak. It will feel like exactly the kind of thing you were taught not to do. That discomfort is actually a sign you're doing it right. The second thing, and this is the one most people resist most, is to let one person see you. Not everyone. Not publicly. Just one person. Someone who has shown you over time that they can hold pain without flinching, who doesn't immediately try to fix things, who stays when things get uncomfortable. And the next time something is actually hard for you, not catastrophically hard, just genuinely difficult, tell that person the truth instead of "I'm fine." I know that sounds devastatingly simple for something that feels so impossibly hard, but the pattern you are trying to break is specifically the pattern of isolation. The belief that you have to carry it alone, that no one wants to see it, that showing it will cost you something. The only way to disprove that belief is with evidence, and the only way to get evidence is to try it once, with one person, and then see what happens. The third thing is to get very, very gentle with the child in you who learned this. This one might sound a little abstract, so let me make it concrete. Somewhere inside you is the version of you that was 7 or 9 or 11 years old and needed to cry and couldn't, who needed someone to say it's okay to be sad and heard silence, or impatience, or stop that instead. That child is not gone. That child's unmet need didn't disappear, it got buried. And a lot of your adult behaviors, especially the confusing ones, the ones you don't understand in yourself, they're that child trying to meet a need that was never met. You are not broken. You adapted. You did the most intelligent thing a child in your position could possibly do. You found a way to survive in an environment where your emotions weren't safe. The strategy worked. It kept you functional when you needed to be functional. It just doesn't serve you anymore, and that's not a character flaw. It's just old code running on a newer machine. There's one more thing I want to name before we close, because it's the thing most people feel but least often say. Grieving this is allowed. You're allowed to be sad, and I mean genuinely, specifically sad, about the childhood you deserved and didn't get, about the comfort that should have been there and wasn't, about all the years you spent being strong when what you actually needed was to be held. That grief isn't self-pity. It's not weakness. It's not being stuck in the past. It is the honest, healthy, human response to a real loss. And the reason it matters is not just emotional, it's physiological. Grief that doesn't move through you gets stored in you. In your body, your nervous system, your patterns. The science on this is extensive and clear. Unexpressed emotion doesn't disappear, it calcifies. Letting yourself grieve the childhood you should have had is not the same as blaming your parents forever or living there. It's a step toward actually leaving it behind, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by finally, slowly, giving it the acknowledgement it was never allowed to have. Here is where I want to leave you. You are not too much. You never were the people who told you, in words or in silence, that your sadness was inconvenient, were not telling you the truth about you. They were telling you the truth about their own limitations. You've learned to be strong under conditions that required it, but the conditions have changed. You are not a child anymore. You are not dependent on the approval of people who couldn't hold your pain. You have more agency now than you have ever had, and the most courageous thing you could do, not the easiest, not the most comfortable, but the most genuinely brave, is to unlearn, slowly, imperfectly, without a timeline, to let yourself be sad when you are sad, to tell someone when you're not okay, to stop performing fine for a world that mostly isn't paying as close attention as you think. You spent years protecting yourself from your own emotions. You can spend the next years learning to live with them instead. That's not regression. That's not weakness. That, for you, is the hardest and most important kind of growing up. In the next video, we're going to talk about something that connects directly to this: the psychology of people who were loved, but not in the way they actually needed. Because understanding what kind of love you received explains more about your adult patterns than almost anything else. That one might hit close to home too. I'll see you there.